GameSack, Joe Redifer, and My Life in Gaming. That's that guy who does like technical videos about video games.
Oh yeah, one of their first videos I saw was when he was talking about like RGB modding an NES, and that got me on the kick. I don't watch many of their videos, but that was one like 10 years ago I watched.
Corey Carlson.
Yeah, he's like bald, right?
Yeah, he's kind of bald, and he has like kind of like big lips, and he's extremely technical. And,
Right.
and I believe he's a little bit southern. Look, I'm gonna side with Jason on this one. I think Jason has said this. It's a little too technical for me, actually. And I like technology, but I click thinking I'm gonna enjoy some talk about video games, and I get kind of lost in their technical sauce.
A lot of retro consoles that are traditionally hooked up with RF or composite video are actually generating an RGB signal that the composite video is derived from.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes there's like in the sine wave thing, this is this signal
I don't
is
care about
more
the sine
pure.
wave. I don't give a fuck about the sine wave. I care about like your technical tutorials entertaining. This dude's, they're not interested. But look, people like them and they get something out of them. So that's good. And these dudes teamed up and they made a documentary chronicling the history in a I thought, a well-paced, good runtime of 1 hour and 10 minutes. Little documentary called Pixels to Pages, chronicling Electronic Gaming Monthly, EGM. Did you get EGM as a kid, or did you at least buy one from the pharmacy?
Yes, I definitely bought one. Maybe it probably had Mortal Kombat on the cover or something, because I was like, ooh. And I bought a few. I've definitely purchased this magazine, and this was a great documentary. I thought,
yeah, you liked it. Yeah,
yeah. No, I mean it's definitely like it's basic, but you can tell a lot of work went into it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too.
I love how. Because they interview a lot of the guys, and I'm like, they don't look that old. And it's like, and then when you see that they were hiring like 16-year-olds to do this magazine.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'll just give a quick overview of the documentary. They're interviewing kind of the first, the pioneers of the magazine, the guys who were there at kind of the inception of the magazine and who were there or influenced some of the most major moments. Among them were, the editor and the writers and the reviewers and the photographer, the guy who would do all the photography at the trade shows. His name is Ed. And he was the oldest of them. He was 40, and the rest of them were kids. They were hiring talentless young people with nothing but time to work on this video. And the classifieds were like, want to play video games and have a job?
I answered an ad that said, "Do you like to play video games?" I figured, sure, I like to play video games.
I was like, sign me up.
Yeah, and they would cut out of high school early to work on the magazine and stay up late and work all hours, and it's kind of amazing. And then that Ed guy, he just would go to trade shows, and especially in Japan where they didn't speak English, so he'd just be like taking pictures, like, oh, they're like, no, he's like, oh well, I got the picture, fuck it.
And that was by far my favorite part of the documentary, was everything about Ed. It's hard to imagine a world before internet. How did they cover video games that were coming out? How do you get somebody excited about what's coming to your video game system? And they would go to trade shows, and they would go rogue.
And they would go to Japan, because Japan would, remember, like, Mario 3 came out in Japan a couple years before us. So it's like you would go to Japan where all the games were coming out there, and then they would come to America. So he would just go, and they had footage of this, too. That was amazing. Yeah. They would have all that footage of them at the old trade shows. So he must have had it, or one of his employees did. And, he'd have the cone. He'd put the cone over the screens to get the glare out, and then they would cut a hole in the cone so that the little 16-year-old or whatever could play the game. And he would be taking the pictures, and he was obsessed with the cameras, and he knew the f-stops, and
he's like a grumpy old man that wanted to take a good picture.
Yeah, it's just like how I have I have the shutter speed so this doesn't flicker.
He has to shoot a CRT with the glare
with film
in such a way that he doesn't get busted, because it's supposed to be like no photography on film. Like it's, with a tripod. Yeah. It's pretty remarkable. And then they would, in some cases, like with, I think Final Fantasy or one of the Final Fantasy games. No.
Or Phantasy Star. Yeah.
Phantasy Star, excuse me. They managed to get a photo of every single screen across the whole map.
Yeah. And they would have to cut them out and piece them together and make the map. Oh, that was awesome. I love that stuff. And it's
like, no wonder you sold 1 million magazines. And there's also something like, it almost felt like bootleg photo. You remember going to a video game magazine and seeing some fuzzy photo of some screenshot of a game that's still in development development from some trade show that you'll never go to. It's like, no wonder you sold magazines. It's exciting.
Yeah, he was pretty connected in the industry, so he would write the quarter man things where it's like, oh, I'm hearing that this game is coming out, this game, and he knew it because he was like talking to the people in the trade shows and stuff like that. But yeah,
they kind of were selling intrigue, selling the mystery and being insiders, and then there was the whole kind of journalistic integrity element to it of like, we really play the whole games. I think Ed was the only one on camera that admitted to not playing. He's like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Beat all 7 levels of a fucking shoot 'em up? No way. I was 40 at the time.
And they copied the Famitsu style where they had multiple reviewers and they all gave their opinion. You knew this guy liked fighting games and this guy liked these kind of games. This guy hated the fucking Game Boy, and he would tell you every time.
That dude hated the Game Boy. He was like, I'll tell any, they're all Gen Xers now. They're all, 50 and up and stuff.
There's something about the green on green and the blurriness and everything else. It makes my eyes bleed, and I can't play those games. I just can't.
I mean, the Game Boy is well remembered. I mean, people like the Game Boy. Hearing him out, it's like he actually just hated the screen and hated the original model. I think it's like the old publication problem of the very thing that makes you marketable, the very thing that's your secret sauce for your publication, is to cut against the industry and to kind of be the truth tellers, to not be a suck up to the studios.
Yeah.
But you actually need access from those studios to sell what you're selling. So it's like a constant tension.
They were losing like advertisers because of how how
critical,
blunt they were, but they would also get them back because they were selling so many magazines. It's like, what are you gonna do?
One of their big stories that was really cute was the Shenlong code from Street Fighter. They did an April Fool's joke where in the opening cutscene, there's like somebody mentions Shenlong, and they're like, by playing around with Photoshop, they made it look like they had a screen grab of some, a code that would allow you to play as this character, right?
Yeah, it was like it was just the mistranslation from the Japanese, and that was in there, and so they just like, oh, that's actually a secret character, and
that was very exciting in those days. Like that's like Blaze from Mortal Kombat, like the dude that was on fire in the background of Mortal Kombat 2.
Oh yeah,
and he ended up being like the top bad guy in the entire Mortal Kombat universe. They like revealed that years later. Like funny. Fucking Blaze is very clever. But I love to hear they were like, yeah, we did this thing and we put it out and everybody was, calling about it. And it was this huge like cultural thing.
So they picked up the phone and put it on speakerphone, the office phone, and dialed up Capcom. Hello, thank you for calling Capcom USA. If you're inquiring about the Shenlong code, please call EGM at blah, blah, blah.
They had some like automated thing that was like, that's not real. I was like, I feel like nowadays people would assume something was fake or whatever. But back then it reminded me that like trust has eroded a lot from institutions and from publications. Cause back then, like if it's in a magazine and it went through some editors and stuff, it's like, you can be rest assured that there's some kind of honesty behind it.
Yeah. It's like you go to a library and you pick out a book about some topic, you're gonna trust that it's accurate information.
Yeah, not anymore. That reminds me of Forgotten Silver was a Peter Jackson movie. It was the whole thing was a parody of biopics and like historical movies and documentaries. And it was about a fake New Zealand filmmaker named Colin Mackenzie. And they used all this really amazing techniques to make it look like old film and stuff. And like the humor is subtle. But I think if you can figure out it's a joke, like based on the jokes that they're making.
Under the remains of a ruined temple marked with a sign of Taurus was the entrance to an underground passage.
It played on some reputable New Zealand channel. No one said it was a joke, and Peter Jackson's a known quantity and stuff. And people were super pissed off. They were calling it a hoax, not like a parody. And I was like, man, how did they not know? And I put myself in a different time, 1996 or whatever. And I'm like, well, because they put it on TV. There wasn't really a broad internet yet. And
it was like the Blair Witch thing, Witch thing, where they had the documentary that was like kind of hyping up the movie, but people thought it was real. It was like, oh, they went missing in the woods, and they interviewed people, and it was just a bunch of actors, and
like, well, they made it.
They made it. This movie must be a documentary.
So then we were talking earlier about corporate takeovers. Eventually, EGM was so successful that it got bought up by some conglomerate. They said, don't worry, we won't fuck with you. We won't lay you off, and they always do. Their big thing, right, was they started just spinning up new magazines. They're like, now there's EGM 2. Now there's what do you call it? Mega Play, so, just be for Sega. So they all got stretched thin. This is what happens, right? Like and shitification's not new, folks. Like, ooh, let's bleed this thing. What happens in that situation? Well, if you have the same number of writers, but now more publications, they don't play through the whole game.
And they duplicate articles for the for the Super Nintendo one. You were going to put this.
You see how much your audience will care. If they don't care that much and it produces more profit, if EJ will still play Pokemon and they can sell it for $70, they're going to do it. The EGMification of Pokemon.
But they was still pretty popular even through that buyout. But magazines had their time and place, and the internet came along. And
didn't it only die semi-recently? January 2009. Well, it ceased being a print publication in 2009.
Okay.
2019 to present, relaunched as a web-focused publication. I remember, I've told the story before. Anytime I was sick when I was a kid, we would go to the pharmacy, we'd pick up our prescription, and as like a treat for being sick, I guess, they would always get me a gaming magazine. Probably the first thing I would do with a gaming magazine is look up the games I already own and try to look at the codes and look at things I didn't know I could do in the game. As the very first thing I would do. And then I'd look through and be like, what other games look cool? What can I dream about maybe getting someday? That was where I learned about that Rings of Power nudie game. Looks like a piece of shit, that game, but
the Naughty Dog one there.
yeah, exactly. As some of them were leaving, they would read the publication in its new form, and they were like, one review just said just another karate game, and they're like, we would never have done that, man. That's never what we wouldn't just write just another karate game.
The ending was pretty stark, because like the one of the people throughout was Martin Alessi. They asked a question about like, oh, it was a great time and stuff, and he was like he's like tearing up, and he's just like, yeah, it was the greatest time of my life. I like miss it that time. And then at the end, it says a memory of that guy, and he died. He died a couple of years ago. They must have gotten the interview obviously before he died, but that's like, I was like, oh man, he was the 16-year-old kid with the carrying around like the tube for Ed, or the
it made me think about how, so one of the things that they kept emphasizing was how glad they were that the documentary was getting made, that people still talk about EGM, that they had any kind of impact on the culture at all. Because, with the publication going away in 2009, it's like EGM is in the past. The whole world has moved on from EGM. But to those guys, that was probably the most, outside of their families and whatever, that's probably the most exciting thing they ever did. And, that time when you were a college kid and you were part of one of the biggest gaming, you influenced gaming culture.
A nationwide magazine, yeah.
And I thought, is on the one hand, it's kind of sad when you have kind of your peak professional moment or creative moment so early in your life. But on the other hand, you know what? Most people don't get to be part of a nationwide cultural phenomenon magazine in the first place. And so it was also cool to hear them be like, yeah, we miss it, but nothing but fond memories. So cool that we did it at all. I see this meme to this day, and I actually created that meme from the magazine.
I have that t-shirt, actually.
Oh, do you? Yeah. So overall, definitely, like, if you're a video game fan, I guess it kind of in that genre of gaming historian. If you missed the gaming historian ever since he decided to leave with his fuck you money, with his mountains of his 10 years of money. Yeah, this will be up your alley for sure. I mean, I think those guys, GameSack, I think just makes really solid, technically competent stuff.
Yeah, it's good. And there's a lot of heart in this little documentary. Like Ed, and he's had his wedding, and he has all the kids from the magazine at his wedding. It's cute.
That was super cute, actually. Yeah, I was like, oh man, that's so good.
So they're like a little family. And even in the shoe era, that guy, when after the buyout, he had everyone from like the magazine at his wedding. So it's like these are like little families, Yeah,
it reminds you of those times in your life when you went to camp, or you were at that job, or you went to that school for that period of time. There's like we form these little kind of social cohorts. Some of them matter more than others, but sometimes that's just like the value of a good project. Something that people, you can rally around. We're going to make a magazine, like a bunch of dumbass kids with too much time on our hands.
Yeah, and everyone had their own like scale. And like Ed, he was just a photographer, but he had this focus on video games. And most magazines didn't care. They just got screenshots from like the publisher or something. But he was like, he just cared about getting his own stuff and using the camera. And he was obsessed obsessed with it. So it's like it was kind of like fun to see. It's like, oh, this guy has this skill and this guy has this skill, and I love seeing stuff like that. Getting a band together, you know.
Those photos really were so much of what that publication was, because it was not an easy thing to have. And if you were the one with the exclusive, you know, then you're going to be the magazine that gets purchased. It's a shame in a way that information is so free. You know, I love information being free. It's very helpful. Scarcity of information was something we could all at least trade on at one time and compete for.
Speaking of like screenshots, in like the 2000s, there was a huge controversy of, instead of screenshots, it was bull shots. It was when like companies would basically like Photoshop their games to look really good and give them to like all these like magazines and websites. And I thought it was a huge like controversy at the time. So yeah, just seeing the humble beginnings where they're actually just taking pictures of a fucking screen. It's like, it's great.
Even when the photos are shoddy, in a way, the shoddiness is kind of fun. It's like, it leaves a little something to the imagination, a little bit of like, what's this game going to be?
Even when I'm streaming, I've been streaming just pointing a camera at my CRT, and people are like, this is more fun.
Oh, that's cute.
It's I don't know. There's something about it. And Mike Matei, he sometimes streams with pointing at the
He put up some video the other day about like his collection of theatrical movies or something, and he then put it behind members. I was like, all right, Mike, fine, whatever.
Was there something like controversial in there that he did?
Is there a 10-inch penis in there somewhere?
Did he talk about how he likes Pokemon in there?
Like, and there's Mike.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.